This is an interview with Wayne and Sandy Poulsen of Squaw Valley, California, conducted July 31st, 1988, and the interviewer was Carole Van Etten. Well, you were starting to tell me about Norman Bills' subdivision.
Oh, well, I don't know how Norm acquired the land, but he got the land between Olympic Village, or Incline Village, and Calneva, and developed it for a residential subdivision. And so he pursued that until he passed away, as just one of the things. He also developed Donner Lake, the subdivisions around there. Yeah. And so in 1937, 38, he got the idea of putting this ski area between Rifle Peak and Calneva, tying in Calneva, the property of Calneva, to the top of Rifle Peak. Well, they didn't know anything about skiing, and I had started this ski area. I hadn't started it, but I had been doing a lot of skiing on a semi-professional. I hadn't been a professional at that time, but at any rate, I was hired with a fellow by the name of Mickelson. I think he just happens to be a picture of him right here.
Halvard, not
Halvard, Roy's brother. And so we spent the winter on the top of the mountain in 1937-38, which was the winter after I graduated from college. I graduated in 37. I spent the winter up there in 37-38, I think it was. And then at that time, I as a result of that survey, we recommended that they don't use Rifle Peak because it was all a south slope. And do you know where Rifle Peak is?
I think so.
Yeah, as you come around, if you drive around from Calneva toward Incline, if you look up on the mountain on your left, you'll see a big rock up there that looks like a rifle sight. That's called Rifle Peak, and the peak is 9,700 feet high. And see who that is, would you? And we had a cabin just on the other side of it. It's still there. It's in a little glacial cirque right on the other side, about 500 feet below it. Matter of fact, our kids go up there almost every winter and stay overnight in it. And it's still there. And during that winter, it was a hard winter, and we got snowed out for a couple of weeks. And so Halvard and I spent a lot of time going other places. We came in here that same winter because we had been coming in here earlier in Squaw Valley, but later in the spring, just to go skiing up on the mountain. So as a result of the survey over there, we recommended that they do not develop that area because the snow wasn't quite reliable enough on the lower part. It was the beautiful skiing up on top. It's out in the sun, and it's kind of like skiing in the Alps. You know, a lot of the best skiing in the Alps is on south slopes. It's up in the high sun, but it has enough altitude. Just like we get a lot of some of our best skiing here on the south slopes too. And but we recommended that they develop an area which is designated as Section 35, which is over on the Montrose Highway. Now, as you go over the Montrose Highway, you look off to the left, and there's a lake down there. Okay, we built that lake. We recommended that the ski area be there so that we could use the north slope. We recommended that we use the lake. I don't have a copy of the report anymore, but we recommended that they build the lake and then have the lodge and so on and so forth around that, And the next summer we surveyed the lift lines to go to the top of that peak, and I have pictures of it around here someplace. And then we could use the south slopes also, as well as the north slopes. Now that's the earliest place in the Sierras where you can ski.
Could we interrupt for just a second?
Yeah.
I'm going to turn off the...
That's the name of the lake you built?
Not Grass Lake. That was called, well, it's called, we used to call it Biltz's Lake. Now it's called, I think, Incline Lake. But it's not really Incline Lake because there's another little lake above it. It was originally called Incline Lake. But there's a lot of water comes down there in Incline Creek. And Biltz owned all that water when they bought that Section 35 from Hotel. So what they sold the water to either the ranchers or the Virginia City Water Company, and they put that ditch in that takes the water across and over out of Lake Tahoe into the Washoe Valley side. So, which was bad for Lake Tahoe, but that's the way things were then, you know. And of course, a lot of things like that happened. That part of Desolation Valley has got those little dams in it, you know, so that water will flow the other way instead of into Tahoe. So those things did happen in the past. But at any rate, they did build the lake, and I worked on the dam there, and worked on the survey. We surveyed the mountain for ski lifts, and then that was in 1937-38. Money was still tight, and financing collapsed because, well, the war was coming on at that time. And during that time, in 1938, I got an option on Squaw Valley because I fell in love with it. At any rate, that was the end of the project on Montrose. But we got a lot of information that winter, and I had written several articles for technical articles for the American Geophysical Union, because see, for about 10 years earlier, after I was about 14 or 15, I'd been snow surveying. And so I'd been doing a lot of work up there for Dr. Church. And so I had written some articles for the American Geophysical Union. And matter of fact, Dr. Church and I went to Los Angeles. He was president of or chairman of the International Snow and Ice Congress at that time. And so I accompanied him down to Los Angeles to one of those meetings. That's neither here nor there, but we did get a lot of information about the whole north end of Lake Tahoe because we skied all over it. In order to get up there, we used to leave Galena Creek. You know where Galena Creek is?
Yes.
You know, down at the bottom of the grade? Well, we used to ski from there up over the top of Montrose Summit and down the other side to Biltz's Lake, and then up and across the ridge. It used to take us about 8 or 9 hours to do that. The first time we went up, Frank Howard was with us. He just left before you arrived. And he went up, but that time it was about Thanksgiving, so we were able to use the highway around through Incline Village. There was nothing in Incline Village at that time. In the wintertime, the whole north end of the lake is closed, except Tahoe City. So there was you couldn't drive to Kings Beach, for example. They only opened the road once in a while. When there was no snow, then they could open it a few places so they could drive in there. So we had, and they had, the mail boat used to go around the lake twice a week, so that's how they used to. South Tahoe only had a few caretakers at that time, and that was true for all the rest of the lake too. But that time before skiing started, see, that was 1937, winter 1937-38. As a result of that, I started the next year a place called, which we called Grass Lake. That's that thing there, that brochure there. And I had a ski school there, and I stayed with that until just before the war started. Looks like we were going to get in the war, and we had the draft coming up and everything else, and I was already a pilot, so I joined the RAF, because we had a squadron of what they called the Eagle Squadron in England. I don't know whether you've ever read about it or not. In the Battle of Britain. Well, in the meantime, we got in the war. We had Pearl Harbor happen, so I went to Sun Valley and taught skiing. I called Otto Lang. You ever hear of Otto Lang?
I know that name.
Okay. He was supposed to be here yesterday, but his invitation came back. I talked to him the night before last. We had the wrong address in it. And he's up in Seattle now. And he said, sure, come on up, you could use me. So I went up there, and in the meantime, we were in the war, and they were thinking about cutting out all the people who had that were in this Clayton Knight Foundation that were going over on the Eagle Squadron. And of course I was one of them, but I was there until March. And then I went down and I trained with the Royal Air Force for about a month. And at that time they had a conference up in Ottawa, and they canceled all the Americans out of the Royal Air Force, the ones that hadn't gone over. And I was one of those. So I got a job instructing in the Air Force. I was a flight instructor in the Air Force. And that's when I married Sandy, because I had met her in Sun Valley. She was up there on a vacation, ski vacation, winter 41, 42. So we were married in 42, late in the fall.
You'll have it for you tomorrow morning.
August.
Okay?
August, what's the date?
Well, he's not going to be there tonight, so.
Yeah.
No.
Think again.
August.
Look at your ring.
I've left him a check here, I just have to tell him how much I have to go up and.
Look at it again.
It won't come off. It doesn't come off anymore.
She always gives me hell every year. Says, do you know what date this is? She's always got the wrong date.
I was just in a hurry, that's all.
Make out a check,
We were at, well then the war started. We were in the war at that time, so somehow or other we had the Man War Power Act at that time. So if you were working someplace in a defense industry or anything related to the military, you were frozen in your job, which was kind of bad because some of my friends had gone to Pan American, which had been taken over by the Navy, because they were the only ones that could fly the Pacific that had the expertise and the aircraft to do it. Because every time that time of the Air Force, every time they sent out not every time, but they had a lot of trouble flying out there because they had no experience. And if you remember Rickenbach, remember that episode? Well, he just got lost down at Canton Island. And so we had set up schools to train the Air Force. And at any rate, I got a job with him as a pilot. And I stayed with him for 31 years. So it's kind of through 3 wars. We were in Korea and Vietnam also. So at any rate, so I spent the rest of the war in the South Pacific. And see, in 1943, I was in school down there, and I finally had a job that I could depend on, you know, for some income. So Sandy and I were able to buy the first piece of Squaw Valley, which is where the lifts are now. You know where the lodge is now? We're about 100 yards on this side, and all the way up the mountain for a mile. We bought that
Section of land.
section of 640 acres
From Southern Pacific.
from Southern Pacific. And then we, every time I'd get a little time off, we'd come back here and we'd ski in, or in the summertime we'd put a tent in there. And by that time we had some kids, so the kids would sleep in the tent, and we would, Sandy and I had, so we were getting started on Squaw Valley. And every time we had a chance, why we'd get some, of course I knew a lot of skiers, a lot of competitors and so forth, and anyone that we could think of, why we would drag into Squaw Valley and have them have a look, and including a lot of pretty prominent people. Forty Hill, and, you know, from the Hill Railroad family, Great Northern Pacific, Great Northern, I guess, and who was later manager of our Olympic team and president of the ski association and so forth. People like Frank Howard, but people like all the champions, all the really good skiers that come out here, and we kept that up until 1948, when we met Alex Cushing over in Alta, after the end of the war. I think we were over there in 47, 46, and 47. Just when we get a vacation, we got a vacation in the wintertime, so we'd go skiing. And Alta was open, because Sun Valley was taken over by the Navy as a rest area, and all the other ski areas were closed except for places like Soda Springs, and my Grass Lake was still open, and I still had the ski school over there, and I had Doty Post and Jack Starrett teaching for me over there while I was gone, teaching skiing. Doty was captain of our Olympic team later, and I had taught her to ski when she was quite a young girl. We have a picture of her out in the hall out here with Emile Allais. Well, after the war, we met Alex Cushing over there, and he came out 47 or 48, 47, I think. And we brought him in here with a party that we were dragging in here. We were taking anyone we could find, you know.
You were raising money.
We were looking for investors. Well, Alex was out here the west after the war. He was looking for a ranch, or so he said. And when he came in here, he stayed at the Sugar Bowl. And he came in with us, and he became interested in his wife was from a very wealthy family. And their name was Cutting, C-U-T-T-I-N-G. And I don't think Alex had any money himself. I think their family didn't have much, but they had a wealthy wife anyway. At any rate, they had some money. So we started this Ski Corp, which is Ski Corp now. It was called the Squaw Valley Development Company. And I was the president, and he was the secretary, treasurer. And then it was apparent right away that Alex and I weren't going to get along, so I just kind of pulled
Well,
out.
I think the basic thing is that we unfortunately turned our land over to this corporation
Yeah.
and then got kind of frozen out of the corporation.
Well, we didn't get frozen out of there. I just wasn't elected the next
For all
meeting.
intents and purposes, we did.
Of course, I didn't control. Unfortunately, most of the directors were from the east, where we raised some money. And so I could see right away there was no hope for me. Because I couldn't, I had a different philosophy.
For sure.
But in the meantime, I had purchased the rest of the valley in 1948. It was just 10 years after I had my first option that we were able to buy the rest of the valley, and we had everything at that time. So at one time we owned everything. Of course, we still have land across the river.
Well, we still have quite a bit in Squaw Valley, too.
And we have a lot here. It goes up over the top of the mountain here. And, well, we've sold this part now, but we still have 50 acres here for the house.
We've got about
But everything
300
between here and the river we
We've got
own,
about
except for the
300
subdivision.
acres altogether.
Yeah.
So,
So, in the meantime, I had done some work as a consultant for places like Bogus Base and
Idaho.
Idaho. We had a place, we even developed a place over there at Cisco called Snowshoe. And
Was that
I
in
made this-
conjunction with Auburn Ski Club?
yeah, we leased it from Auburn Ski Club, and also did all the work, did the original work on Boreal, not on what's called Boreal now. This was after the Olympic Games. We should have bought it. We should have purchased that. As a matter of fact, we had a chance to buy it, but I figured we had enough land, enough problems without buying it. But we were getting kicked out of Cisco because the highway was going through it, see. So we felt that we were going to move Cisco, everything down Cisco up to Boreal. Well, never really occurred to me that Wendell Roby was going to say, hey, we're going to keep this for the ski club. And so he bought it for the ski club, you know, and I said, well, I don't want to get into any battles
Excuse me a
with
minute.
him. In the early 50s, I drew a plan for Alpine Meadows and all the way to the lake. And I still got that plan, part of that plan around there somewhere. Is it up at the office, Sandy? I think it's in that big leather-bound book, isn't it?
Yes.
But at any rate, about this is about 1954 or 55. Later on, after the Olympics, they decided to develop it. But I had my plan to develop Alpine Meadows was never to go up there on the road, because I figured that we would go up to the top of Papoose and down the other side, and then go up into Alpine Meadows on a series of Poma lifts, which were developed, and they were good at that time. We didn't have the gondola type lifts at that time. So my plan shows a chairlift going up top of Papoose, a chairlift going down the other side, and then Poma lifts going up, and all the people would come from Squaw Valley over the top, and that would be an auxiliary place to ski. Well,
Oh, hi. Is Sandra around up there?
and I developed that plan because I didn't think that we could afford to build a road up there, because it was just too formidable. Besides, there were a lot of avalanches up in the upper end.
Yeah.
Teddy came over to play
And,
with
As it turned out, when Alpine went bankrupt, I guess it never declared bankrupt, but they were bankrupt. The amount of money that they owed was almost identical with the amount of money that that road cost them. But as it turned out, of course, the road is the better solution. But I had never contemplated doing that, and Sandy and I should have bought that. We could have purchased all the private land plus 5 lakes. At one time, we could have purchased 5 lakes for $2,500.
That's crazy.
Imagine that.
No. And now it's kind of stalemate in Squaw Valley because it was bought by the Forest Service and they put it into rare too.
Well, the Forest Service wanted it,
go across.
and the only reason I thought it would be worthwhile buying was the fact that Forest Service had land and they wanted someone to buy it and trade it to them. So we almost did. The lady who bought it, who owned it, had sold the land to Denny Logging Company, which just made a mess of the lower part. You know where all the subdivisions are now? You can't believe how bad that was. They just went and logged it, took all the best timber out of it, and it was a terrible mess. So it was so bad I hated to even go up there. But at any rate, we didn't do it. Then later on it was developed.
Speaking of 5 lakes, I wonder if you can tell me anything about these cabins.
Yeah, this was the this is at Whiskey Creek.
Easy Kellett over at the Truckee Ranger Station gave me those to see if I could learn anything more about them.
The one at 5 Lakes was used in the movie Rosemary, you know, with Nelson Eddy and Jeanette.
No, I
McDowell.
didn't know that.
Oh yeah, when you see the movie Rosemary, you should see it if you can, because it's all
I'm gonna
taken
see
in
it
Squaw
this
Valley and
week.
up the trails. Oh really? Where's it playing?
Well, I'm teaching an elder hostel class at Olympic Valley School there.
Oh really?
This
Yeah.
looks to me
They show it every session.
Oh, do they? Oh yeah. 'Cause
Is this one here?
I'm not sure.
This looks like it's Whiskey Creek. Still there, unless it's
Yeah,
disappeared.
these aren't
Still
really
there.
old pictures. They're-
Now this, I don't know. I don't remember that.
The one at 5 Lakes was demolished, unfortunately,
That's
by vandals.
not.
It was
This isn't the one at
very
5 Lakes.
interesting. Very
Oh,
interesting
well, that's
place.
how it's labeled.
Yeah, It was a very interesting old cabin.
I'm pretty sure it's.
So you'll see that in the movie.
No, it's gone, son.
I know, but in the movie you can still see it. They used it in the movie for when they go up the trail, they go to the 5 Lakes and the cabin up there.
It was rebuilt for that.
Yeah. And then it was
But
subsequently
then people
demolished
just kept using it, burned it down.
Yeah. Tragic. Just a shame.
This, I'm pretty sure that's Whiskey Creek.
Do you have any idea how old those cabins were? They were here when you got here, I'm sure.
It's always been one of
Sheep herders, possibly?
No, I don't think so. You know, I don't know who built that cabin at 5 Lakes, but down below 5 Lakes, on the stream on 5 Lakes Creek, there used to be an old plowshare down there. And I looked for it not so many years ago. Last time I was there, I looked by there. I kind of looked to see if it was still around, because I wanted to pick it up, because it was an antique.
Yeah.
Someone had left that plowshare, and I always figured that someone had come in there and homesteaded that area at 5 Lakes, and expected to cultivate those meadows. I mean, it's a dumb thing, but people in those days did a lot of dumb things. Not dumb, but because they didn't know any better. They didn't know that they'd get 10 or 15 feet of snow there. You can go up to the Blue Mountains in Oregon. You see all these old homesteads. I've been up there elk hunting several years. We had a club up there. You see all these old homesteads. I took a bunch of pictures of them one year because they're interesting old log cabins. But they're all deserted. You know, they're all fallen down. They're all deserted, and I could never figure out what they were for. But they were always usually around a little meadow, just like up in British Columbia now. You see these little places where they've got some meadow, and they can enough to keep a few cows and a few cattle, and people are on a hand-to-mouth existence.
Yeah.
And I think that was one of these things up here, for example. Then, as you wander around, like you'll see small log cabins from the loggers, original loggers, and I think of it. I want to show you this. You can take this with you as long as you bring it back.
Oh, that's good. So we want to thank you for your gift. That's very thoughtful.
Please,
Oh, this is the book you mentioned. It was written by the lady who came to the area back in the before the turn of the century.
This is tells all about her riding between Truckee and Tahoe.
Oh, marvelous.
Uh-huh.
First published in 79, so it must have been
Okay, that's
5 or
nice.
10 years earlier.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
And
Cleaning up. Yeah, it is.
she has an altercation. There were a lot of grizzlies in there at that time. Tells about Donner. Anyway, her trip up the Truckee River in one place sounds exactly like she had come to the entrance of Squaw Valley. You see the old road, see down there where they're building the bridge? If you stop there and you look across the creek on the upstream side,
I've seen all that rock work that's
see all the
done
rock work there? That's where the old road, the old stage road, used to come along and come up, didn't come all the way to the meadow. It came in part way and then turned and went out where our entrance is now. And you know, as you go out of the valley, you'll see a no trespassing sign. There's an old road that goes back in there. That's where the old road used to come around because of, I guess, the big rocks came right up against the river there, and so they came into Squaw Valley and around and back to the river. Then later on, they crossed the river and put part of it up the other side. But if you read that, it sounds just like that was the place, because she relates in there that she could look up the valleys and see the snow on the mountains. It's just like they were looking up the stream, up the Squaw Creek.
Well, that would be about the only place you could see the mountains on the whole road. So.
Either here at the entrance to
Alpine.
Alpine. But you take
Someone was
this
telling me
with you.
that-
Just be sure to give it back to me,
Thank
because
you,
I
I
haven't
will.
finished it yet.
Oh, well,
No,
You wanna finish
you
it
go.
and-
No, you go ahead. I've got a whole bunch. I belong to this folio society that reprints all this stuff.
oh, that's
They do a nice job.
yeah.
I've got to get your book for you too.
Oh, right.
So you can
Short
read
stories.
this. As a matter of fact, you might want to get some copies of you could reprint the parts that tells about Truckee. It's really comical.
Yeah, I guess that was.
The train had just, I guess the train had just come through Truckee, and she relates about the road through there and the railroad tracks, and Truckee was all there, and they're open all night, and roaring bonfires all over the place, and most of the places in Truckee had no fronts on them. See, they were just kind of open-ended buildings.
How could they
People
be that way in
gambling
the
and
wintertime?
drinking. They're all loggers. They were logging this area at that time for Virginia City. See?
Now, speaking of this original road where the rock work is, was there a railroad spur that came in here at one time?
Well, I've heard that, but I've never seen any. But they used to drag the logs down off of the mountain here, and matter of fact, one of the drags was right across on the other side of the meadow here. That they used to drag it on the logs. Did you ever see one of those chutes?
Yeah, there are some up in
the
back of Rubicon that we used to go
they're like
hike
this,
up to.
flattened like that.
Yeah.
And they're dragged along, and they have guys greasing the skids. The oxen would be hooked up to the logs, and they pull the oxen along. And there's some of these. Matter of fact, there was one just come into our old house up there. It came right by it. The logs were still in place, but they're gone now.
Mm-hmm.
And the old gold mining, the old diggings for the gold mines too.
Yeah.
Because there were two gold mining towns at the entrance of the valley.
Yeah, those
Knoxville and Claraville.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Knoxville.
Yeah, I've
and
seen
Claraville.
pictures of the
And
what
also,
was left of the cabins.
did you ever see did you ever read the book about, that has a description of a fellow who visited Knoxville?
No.
You didn't? I have that somewhere. I'll try to find it for you. But he's got a description. Maybe it's in here. He's got a description of his visit to Knoxville. He didn't think much of it.
Well, I guess it was a really boom and bust
Yeah.
settlement.
Here it is right here.
Oh, I don't remember seeing that. I'll have to look for
Inhabitants of
that.
Knoxville and Claraville numbered several thousand. But, do you have one
Yeah, I
of
have
these?
a copy of this.
All right. Here it is right here. Right here and here. That's a copy of this book. Just put in this book. So if you have this, you have it. That
a
came
note
out
to
of
myself.
Brewer's book. I've got a copy of the original book.
Oh.
First started by Shannon Knox and called Knoxville. He said, I would give $25 for a good photograph of that street. A trail runs through it, for as yet a wagon has not visited these parts. Buildings spoken of are not four-story brick or granite edifices. Not one has a floor, not one has a chair or table, except such as could be made on the spot. This shanty in the shade of the tree with roof of brush has a sign out, Union Clothing Store, etc., etc. Tells about the...
Hello.
So,
Yeah, I guess it was mostly a tent city.
well,
There were, I've seen pictures of,
This is Smithers, BC. And
in
the
case there's
rest of the
any
year,
delay,
in the wintertime,
I
the
can
roads
call
were
you, see.
roads were not plowed.
And also, I want to give the telephone number
like the
the two other guys
drugstore was open
for the
2
same
mornings a
reason. They'll
week,
be
and
arriving on the
everything
6th.
was boarded up. The houses,
Now,
most of the houses were boarded up,
And
and
would you have
mostly
room
summer
for
people.
9 guys
There
altogether?
were very few families that even stayed in there year
All right.
round. And
We'll all
I
have
think
our
Cow
sleeping
City,
bags with
both Cow City and
in case
Truckee
you
have
need it.
really benefited enormously from Squaw Valley, because they have their longest season now in the wintertime,
Yeah.
you know, from
That's
November through April. I don't think they appreciate what
Okay.
Squaw Valley has done for them, but anyway, it's something that they don't realize.
All right, now,
I guess.
well, there's such a
the fellow I was
turnover
telling you
of,
about that
I
might
think
fish with
the
you
average person
starting
now
the
who
7th,
comes to,
is
moves
not
to
coming.
Tahoe
Yeah.
planning to live
So,
here may only
how are you
stay 2
doing
or
on the
3
salmon
years,
right now?
and then they're gone again. They have no idea of
yeah.
what has
Very-
been here.
Oh, yeah?
Very, very tough surviving economically.
How about those guys
here,
from
you know.
Luxembourg?
Like our kids, Glenn that has about 3 or 4 different jobs
I
and
see.
careers and things just because they want to stay in the area, but it's not easy to survive up there.
Well, I think you have to be willing to do that if you're going to live here
Yeah.
year round.
Willing to sacrifice, because there's no real economic base. You just got, seasonal tourism, this kind of stuff. Nothing really steady. That's why
Where do
I
you
think
think
this
we'll
new
fish, on the
development is
Buckley
going
or up
to
on
be so
Bradley?
valuable for Squaw Valley. because it's going to stabilize the economy on a year-round basis when we get a real quality golf course in here and summer activities.
Okay.
And it is so beautiful here that, it needs to have something to allow people to survive in business here because it's a beautiful area. And it's a fabulous location. There's so much more potential than Aspen and Vail and all those areas, because you want to go to Aspen or Vail, to fly into Denver, then you have another almost all day to get to Aspen and Vail. Here we're 45 minutes from the International Airport. It's a fantastic location. And you've got the fastest growing county in California, our Placer County down below. They call it Silicon Valley now, and Nevada's the fastest growing state in the United States, and we're just right in the right in the location where people can come for enjoy their recreation. So I think the future is really just beginning here.
Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing those
It's interesting in that book there, that magazine article, Wayne talks about how Squaw Valley could benefit from a golf course.
Oh yeah, in 1960, I noticed that this morning.
That's finally beginning to take place. So I think it's going to see, Squaw Valley's always been kind of like a company town, where the minute Alex closes down, everybody drops dead or goes broke or something, and this will kind of get us away from being so dependent on one corporation and make it easier for people to be.
Well, Perini certainly has a good record for what they've done so far. I think Chambers is the most beautiful development on the lake.
It really is, that's right. So that's why that's what we're looking for, is quality developers, and that's why we haven't too much of a hurry to sell our property unless it's to somebody who can really benefit the area and do a quality development.
I don't think they've got anything right there.
To attract that type
we could
of
bring
interest.
stuff from here, but they won't let us.
Yeah.
Custom takes it away from us.
Well, I think it'll be very nice. They've certainly had their problems with trying to get going.
Outrage.
They got wonderful
county
food.
They're the ones that will benefit the most, creaming the taxes off the top like they do from this area, and very little comes back.
That's right.
And yet they make it just as difficult as possible for even a quality development to get going. And it really is outrageous, because you've got to have so much front money before you even know whether you can do anything or not. It's really tough. And I guess it's really almost impossible at the lake now to do anything.
Yeah.
With TRPA, it's just really difficult. So, anyway.
The people who have the most to say about it have really the least personal stake in it, it seems like.
Sure, exactly. Nothing. No, that's for sure. That's for sure.
I think maybe the fact that it's been a seasonal community for so many years has put it at a real disadvantage.
Yeah, that's right.
Because the people who do stick it out here and live here year-round, no matter what, are the ones who, in most cases, have the least financial wherewithal to do anything about preserving it or in developing it in a nice way.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
Let's see, I started snow surveying about 1931, 31. I was about 15 years old. And the reason I started snow surveying, a neighbor of mine, and a fellow who worked with my father's name was Fred Hers. Did you ever hear of Hers Jewelry down in Reno?
Yes.
Okay. That's the company. And he was quite an explorer. He was with Dr. Church on his Greenland expeditions. And I had gotten to be a pretty good skier about that time. And whereas the rest of them weren't much. They went skiing 2 or 3 times a year, and that was about it. And they used one big long pole and the whole bit, see. And so I think the first year I went to the south end of the lake, and I still have some pictures around of that trip. Lars Hagen was with us, and Lars Hagen was working for the Tahoe Tavern at that time as a ski professional. And he's the fellow that built the hill at Grandebar. And it was a pretty big hill at that time. Now, it's much smaller now than it used to be. And I probably have some pictures of it around there, but the record on the